Inside the Illini Big Ten College Football is brought to you by your local Anheuser-Busch distributors, O'Brien Auto Park of Urbana, Hickory River Smokehouse in Urbana, and WAND.
Welcome to Inside the Illini Big Ten Football, here to put a bow on the 2013 season. I'm Matt Lovelace here at Hickory River Smokehouse in Urbana for the last time this year as we look back at 2013 for the Fighting Illini. Now, we've tweaked the show format a little bit. We'll, of course, look at the last game, which was Senior Day against Northwestern, but we'll also look at the Big Ten title game matchup. Plus, we'll talk about some of our studs and duds from this season and get a quick look at 2014. And for the last time, our panel of experts joins me at the table. Matt Daniels with the Champaign News-Gazette, Steve Kelly, Sports Talk 1400. Guys, thank you very much all season for joining me. We love sports, we love college football, we love our jobs, but at the end of a season like this, there might be a little sense of relief that we're able to kind of put it to rest.
Yeah, I'm already working on my depth chart though for the 2014.
You don't stop.
I don't stop. I don't stop at all for the 2014 Illinois football team. So yeah, the season mercifully came to an end on Saturday against Northwestern, but moving forward, taking Tim Beckman's favorite line from this season, and I already got my thoughts on 2014. So.
Positive.
Really, I do.
At least it was a good game. I mean,
yeah.
The outcome didn't come out the way that Illini fans would have liked, but it was kind of an interesting game up and back. And I actually thought Illinois would win the game, but Northwestern was a little better that day. But yeah, now it's time to look ahead. We've looked at the schedule. We'll talk more about that coming up too.
To your point, they lost the game by 36 last year. They lose it by 3 this year.
Exactly.
There is improvement, and that leads to my question. I know, Matt, you predicted a 4-8 season.
I did.
I don't know if this is exactly how you saw it happening. I think the Cincinnati win early on kind of caught us a little bit off guard. But in terms of evaluating the season just briefly, if you had to pick one, was this a step forward, a step sideways, or a step backward for the program this year?
I'd say it's a step forward. The offense improved dramatically. Defense had the same problems they did last year. But it is a step forward. I mean, Tim Beckman mentioned it too in his last press conference the week before Northwestern that, it's nothing to brag about, but they have doubled their win total. So, but I say a step forward, and you're looking at kind of the bare necessities that they had from last year and just the struggles they had in 2012. So it is a step forward, but it's not a gigantic step forward by any means.
I think most Illini fans before the season would have said 4-8. Yeah, that's probably about where they would be, and maybe with a break or two, you win 2 more games to go to a bowl game. That didn't happen. So yeah, I think so. But I'm not sure anybody saw how bad the defense turned out. I don't know if we saw that coming.
Yeah.
There was improvement, as Matt said, in the other 2 areas, but the defense went the other way, went south.
That's one thing. I think the offense got much better. The defense got a little bit worse. They weren't great last year either.
Right.
But that's kind of what we saw last week. Wildcats were 0-7 in the Big Ten on the road, favored in their final conference game of the year. We'll take a look back at the Illinois Northwestern game next on Inside the Illini Big Ten Football. Welcome back to Inside the Illini Big Ten Football. The Northwestern football season of 2013 had some strange parallels to the 2011 Illinois season. Both ranked 16th at their peak. Both tailspins started with losses to Ohio State. Both of those losses were by 10 points. Very strange. Northwestern and Illinois met in Memorial Stadium's Senior Day.
Like the last home Saturday in any stadium, the vibe minutes leading up to kickoff was positive and emotional.
My whole career here in Illinois is coming to an end, and that's something you talk about, but it's not really real to you till it actually happens.
Illinois and Northwestern, neither with anything left to win, but this game, and it was lining up to be the shootout many expected. Early on, Northwestern had a whole lot of time with the ball. After kicking a field goal, they added 7. Trevor Siemian, in for an injured Kane Coulter, hit Christian Jones for a Northwestern touchdown. Illinois was down 10-0, but the second quarter was a different story. A 1st and 10 at the Northwestern 25. Receiver Steve Hull slips on his route, but Nate Shieldhouse dropped the pass right where he was laying.
Try to plant my feet and go back, and the inside foot slipped out from underneath me, so when I fell, I was just hoping the ball would get to me, and it would be in my reach, and I saw it and just threw my hands up.
Next drive, just 6 plays and 54 yards, Illinois jumped out in front. Josh Ferguson in from a yard out. Fergie a little shaken up on the play, but he would return, but Illinois had the lead. Northwestern took the lead back, then Illinois tied it at 17. And with a minute left, a crucial sequence. Illinois had the ball, but only managed to take 29 seconds off the clock. Northwestern capitalized on a bad punt and wound up with 3 unlikely points.
Weren't able to move the football, coming out of the red zone, and it was a swing there. There's no question about that.
But after the half, game mismanagement didn't seem to be an issue. Josh Ferguson gave his team the lead for the second quarter in a row. Just the second play, a 55-yard breakaway score. Illinois led 24-20 and hung on to that 4-point lead into the fourth quarter. But just 5 seconds into the final period, Simeon found Rashad Lawrence in the end zone. Northwestern was back out in front. Illinois talked all season about being a team unable to overcome mistakes. Well, they made one at a really bad time. Shieldhouse scrambling, looking like he was trying to throw it away, left it too far in bounds. Tyler Scott pulled in the interception and all of the momentum.
It was one of those ones that right when I let it go, you want to reach out there and grab it to take it back.
Northwestern had the clock in the palm of their hands, ending the 2013 season on a knee. Illinois fell 37-34.
We challenged them. I had the seniors standing in front, and we challenged the seniors along with the coaching staff, challenged this football team to progress. And if they don't want to accept that challenge, well, then they're probably not going to be here.
More of the same in terms of what the defense has done all year. 5th time this season, Illinois has given up 500 yards to a team, 560 for Northwestern. Makes it really hard for your offense to compete.
Well, I thought what was interesting about Saturday's game is that Northwestern didn't really hurt Illinois in the run game like we've seen all season from teams. I mean, Illinois gave up 5 200-yard rushing games by running backs throughout the season. But Trevor Simeon had just a great day for the Wildcats. Looked like the second coming of Steve Schnurr, the quarterback that led the Wildcats to the Rose Bowl in the mid-'90s, or Brett Bazinet, or Mike Kafka, someone like that. But he just lit up the Illinois secondary all game long, and that was the real surprising aspect for me, is that the run game didn't hurt Illinois too much.
Northwestern folks are probably saying, where's this guy been? And as you watch from the high up in the press box, as we do, I think the 3 of us could have caught some passes in the Illinois secondary. Those guys are running wide open out there.
Yeah, they definitely were. And the key to the game at the end was the late interception by Shieldhouse. They were on their own 45-yard line and driving, but I think Nate just couldn't get the ball far enough out of bounds.
Yeah, it was a weird throw, just a weird play overall. You knew what he was trying to do, and it just looked like he just, obviously didn't put as much on the throw as he wanted to, and Scott was right there, the Northwestern defensive end, and picked it off, and that was a crucial play in the game, and Nate, said afterwards, he'd want that one back anytime, and I don't blame him on that throw.
I think you got to make somebody in the first or second row catch that ball.
Right.
If there was anyone in the first or second
well, there's that. Throw it over the bench.
Well, you wonder if he thought he might be able to get a receiver, because the way he was running, he had to throw significantly across his body to keep that one in bounds. He was trying to keep it somewhat close to the sideline. I don't know if he was concerned about grounding. He was out of the pocket, so I don't know what happened on that play.
Well, Steve Hall was open on the play.
And I know Nate really wants that one back, too.
Sure.
A thing I mentioned there as we were recapping the game, the end of that first half was big to me, and maybe I kind of beat the dead horse on Twitter a little bit. At the end of the first half, Northwestern got a field goal after Illinois had the ball with a minute left. And looking at the plays, Illinois felt like they were kind of caught between trying to run out the clock and trying to get themselves in position to kick a field goal. They couldn't figure out which one to do, and in the end, a bad punt gave Northwestern the ball back.
Yeah, just poor clock management by Illinois there. I mean, when things went bad for Illinois this year, they went really bad, and that was a prime example. You think, they're going to go into halftime tied at 17 after Northwestern had a really bad fake field goal earlier on that drive, and then just to get those 3 points back was kind of devastating for Illinois.
Yeah, the Illinois fake field goal defense of the last couple of weeks has been pretty good.
Hey, look for bright spots anywhere we can. Hey, you know what? The Big Ten title game is tonight, and we'll get into these Big Ten topics. Stakes got quite a bit higher for Ohio State thanks to a little happening in Auburn last Saturday. Sometimes, though, that's the kiss of death when a team is ranked second going into the championship weekend. We'll take a look at the title matchup next on Inside the Illini Big Ten Football.
Time to announce the Inside the Illini season MVP. The cumulative effort of Nathan Shieldhouse wins out. The senior quarterback, many say due to the guy calling plays, made his last season the most prolific. Shieldhouse led an offensive resurgence in Champaign, setting career highs for completion percentage, touchdowns, and overall passer rating. He ended his career at Illinois as the all-time leader in total yardage, passing Juice Williams in his final quarter in orange and blue.
Welcome back to Inside the Illini Big Ten Football. Now, for most of the season, everybody in the conference was chasing two teams. Ohio State virtually locked up their Big Ten title game spot when they beat Wisconsin on the first week of the Big Ten season. It took a little longer for Michigan State, but I think it's pretty clear the two best teams in the conference will be going at it tonight. Our Noah Newman takes a look at the matchup.
What happens when one of the best offenses in the country meets one of the stingiest defenses in the country? We're about to find out tonight when Michigan State and Ohio State square off at Lucas Oil Stadium.
You're not going to sit there and worry about losing. We're going to play hard, and whoever's the best football team will probably win.
The Spartans have proven that defense wins championships, or at least gets you there. They're back in the title game for the second time in 3 years, thanks to a defense that's allowed under 12 points per game. That is fourth best in the nation.
This will be a very stiff challenge for us. Excellent defense and a much improved offense that's scoring a lot of points.
If anyone can crack that defense, it's the Buckeyes. With the help of Braxton Miller under center and Carlos Hyde in the backfield, Ohio State has averaged 48 points per game. That's third best in the nation.
Difficult matchup. It'll be exciting for our defense to match up against them, and it comes down to the basis of playing football. You know, you need to block, you need to tackle, catch the football at all different aspects of the game, and on defense, you got to play the ball in the deep part of the field.
There's a lot on the line for both teams tonight. For Michigan State, a win gets them in the Rose Bowl, the first time since 1998.
A win on Saturday would for myself and for our program, it would be goal number 2 accomplished. Number 2, we've got 3 of them. So that would be the second goal accomplished, and I would think it would send a message throughout the country right now. I think we're sending that message.
For the undefeated Buckeyes, there's even more at stake, a spot in the national championship.
Something after this game, that's cheating my football team, and there will be no conversation about what happens after this game till after the game. We got to go watch Michigan State's defense and see if we have any comments about something after this game.
Well, it's no secret. The big matchup is going to be Ohio State's offense against Michigan State's defense, especially in the running game. Michigan State gives up about 64 yards a game. Ohio State gets about 320. I imagine it'll be somewhere in the middle there. It's where do we think that middle ground will be?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, Carlos Hyde and Braxton Miller are obviously very potent running the ball. I think the key for the Buckeyes tonight is how well Braxton Miller can throw the ball against a very stingy Spartan secondary, and also how well Michigan State can move the ball against Ohio State's defense. You know, everyone talks about Ohio State's offense, and you know, Michigan put up 41 points against Ohio State's defense, but they got some prime, big players in Ohio State's defense, and Ryan Shazier and Noah Spence and Joey Baza, and the list can go on and on. So that's kind of the where I'm looking forward to watching tonight's game is those aspects.
Ohio State's had a large number of close calls this year, with teams staying with them, making the games interesting. I was doing the pregame show on radio, trying to keep an eye on that Ohio State-Michigan game. That was tough to do, and I give Brady Hoke a lot of credit for going for the win. I don't credit his play call so much, but that's easy to say after the fact. But I like to, what the heck, let's go for the win.
Well, and I'm not going to kill. I think a lot of national media look at that as a concerning loss. I'm not going to kill Ohio State for beating Michigan by 1 in the Big House. That's a big game for those two teams. That's one of those rivalry games where you really do throw the records out the window. And if Michigan wanted to win one game this year, that was it. And obviously Brady Hoke showed that. The other matchup, though, that people probably won't talk enough about is Ohio State does have a top 30 defense. Michigan State has struggled on offense most of the year, 84th in total offense. How do you see that matchup playing out and affecting the outcome?
Yeah, I think how Connor Cook responds in kind of a big pressure atmosphere. I mean, this is what Jim Delaney, I think, has wanted since they started the title game, having, the top two teams with plenty at stake. I mean, Ohio State's still in the mix for BCS title game. Michigan State wins, they might go to Pasadena for the first time since 1987. But how Connor Cook kind of responds in that atmosphere. Ohio State's secondary, led by Bradley Roby's very robust, and I just am curious to see how the young quarterback will handle the primetime atmosphere in Indy tonight.
Well, Ohio State has a lot to play for, obviously being number 2. They probably did kind of a signature win just to make sure they're still number 2 after this ball game, and there'll be a big red-clad crowd making the short trip over to Indianapolis. It should be a great atmosphere. Ohio State in this game for the first time.
And I think that we'll talk a little bit more about the significance of this win. It would be a win over a top 10 BCS team, which would help for the resume. But you hear the national media, you hear, I heard the SEC commissioner Mike Slive on the radio today talking about, oh yeah, one win or one loss SEC easily over Ohio State. We know the Big Ten is down, but I don't think many voters are prepared for that. Does Ohio State need to be really convincing in this one, or do they just need to win? Is 13-10 okay?
I just think they need to win. And that's pretty much it. Will seal the deal for them to get to Pasadena and play in the BCS title game. A loss there, and who knows what happens with Florida State, and we might be looking at an Alabama-Auburn rematch in the BCS title game. So next year the playoff comes in. So
yeah, we should mention something similar happened when Auburn played LSU in the championship. Auburn didn't go to the SEC championship game. That benefited them, which is entirely possible.
I'm with you. I can't wait till next year.
Yeah, top 4. We'll complain about the 5th team later. Well, we did see 5 Big Ten teams end their seasons last week, but besides Michigan State and Ohio State, 5 more are planning on going to bowl games. We'll take a look at the last week of the regular season, plus break down a few bowl predictions coming up on Inside the Illini, Big Ten football.
Our Inside the Illini Play of the Year recognizes the top Fighting Illini play from the entire 2013 season, and it's brought to you by Skef Distributing. And considering the opponent, Michigan State, now in the Big Ten title game, this was a big one at a big point in the game. Quarterback Connor Cook trying to score, but a huge stand by Illinois' Jonathan Brown, popping the ball out, recovered in the end zone by Darius Mosley, the rest of the game notwithstanding. That is our Play of the Year.
Welcome back to the show. Most Big Ten eyes are going to be on the game in Indy tonight, but a whole lot more eyes involving a lot of teams around the Big Ten will be paying attention to tomorrow when we find out where some of these teams are going to go for their postseason. Eric Harold gives us a look at the last week of the regular season with our look at the highlights.
Thank you, Matt. It was a sometimes crazy, sometimes upsetting finale for the Big Ten regular season. Number 11, Michigan State, was not on the losing end of it. Spartans strike first with Jeremy Langford running right around the end and squeezes into the pylon. Michigan State holds Minnesota to a field goal and wins 14-3. Next up for the Spartans, a date in Indy with the Ohio State Buckeyes. Nebraska versus Iowa in a battle of bowl-bound teams. This is a man play as Mark Wiseman runs right, takes a hit, he's going to take another hit, and he gets it, a first down inside the 1-yard line. It would set up a short touchdown. Iowa ruins the Huskers' hopes of ending the Reg Seas on a winning note. Hawkeyes over Nebraska 38-17. The Ohio State University undefeated taking on Michigan, always a heated game. It got overheated at one point. It just had to come down to the last play after all of that. Michigan, gutsy call, going for a 2-point conversion to win it, and it is picked off. Buckeyes edged the Wolverines 42-41. And looking at the final Legends Division standings, no surprises at the top as Michigan State rolls through the Big Ten undefeated and leads the division. A very impressive 5 of 6 teams earned bowl eligibility. Well, you just saw the big brawl, but the actual game was also pretty good. This is your Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year, Braxton Miller, weaving through the defense and into the end zone. The Buckeyes have a showdown with Michigan State this Saturday. To the winner goes a Big Ten championship. Well, not worried about BCS or any other bowl projections. Ineligible Penn State looking to play spoiler to number 15 Wisconsin. Hackenberg goes down the field to Eugene Lewis. Touchdown Penn State. And the Nittany Lions pull off a stunner, taking down the Badgers 31-24. Well, there's really no way to hype up a game between teams with a combined 3-13 Big Ten record. But here's Indiana and Purdue anyway. Trey Roberson goes to Shane Wynn, back of the end zone, touchdown Hoosiers. Indiana gets the bucket as they win 56-36 over the Boilermakers. And it's not a surprise at the top of the final Leaders Division standings as Ohio State, undefeated, sits atop the rankings. Wisconsin is the only other bowl-eligible team. And now we return to the Inside the Illini crew.
As a whole lot of people have their bowl predictions, you have your own, Matt. I was scouring the internet to see what a lot of people thought, what different publications thought. Most in agreement because, bowls select based generally on the placement of your team. BCS Championship, everybody has Ohio State at this point because they're number 2, because they're favored over Michigan State. That would, by default, put Michigan State in the Rose Bowl against the team favored right now in the Pac-12, Stanford. Steve, what do you think of a Michigan State-Stanford Rose Bowl?
I think it'd be a good game. I'd kind of lean towards Michigan State in that game just because of their defense. But the Pac-12 teams do well in the Rose Bowl, so that's a tough call.
And Stanford, struggled this year. 2 kind of surprising losses to Utah and USC at the time. So, a trip out west for the folks in East Lansing would be a welcome sight if they haven't been there for more than 2 decades.
I don't know if you guys watched the Stanford-Oregon game, but what Stanford did to Oregon, just pounded the ball up the middle. Obviously, Michigan State wouldn't allow that as much, so that would definitely have to change the game plan for the Cardinal. As I kind of go down, a lot of January 1st bowls for the Big Ten, Capital One Bowl, one of them, Wisconsin, a big projection to go there. What do you think of Wisconsin? And against the other projection is Missouri.
Interesting. Wisconsin laid an egg against Penn State, and that was kind of surprising. They were in the discussion, last week if they beat Penn State and a couple other pieces fall the way, they might, play themselves into a BCS bowl bid. They'll play on January 1st somewhere in Florida. I don't know if it's Capital One Bowl. I'm a fan of
Outback Bowl.
I'm a fan of Iowa right now.
Yeah.
I like what Kurt Ferentz has done there and just rebounding that program, and I wouldn't be shocked if they play in Orlando that day. But Wisconsin, is kind of the logical choice. They're kind of the 3rd best team in the Big Ten right now.
That was kind of a head scratcher though, with Penn State going in there and putting a whooping on Wisconsin at home. If there is that matchup that you talked about with Missouri, I would have to favor Missouri in that game.
Well, and as we go down this list, there are a lot of games where the Big Ten will probably be underdog. There could be 7 games for the 7 teams where they're underdogs. There's very much potential for that. Iowa projected for the Outback Bowl. South Carolina is one of the projections on the other side of that as an SEC school.
It'll be another chance for Jadeveon Clowney to take off a Big Ten running back's head in that game in Tampa like he did last year to Michigan. So, that's an intriguing matchup. Everyone will most likely pick the SEC school and the Gamecocks and what Steve Spurrier's done. But like I said, I'm on the Iowa bandwagon full go right now.
Yeah, the way they went into Lincoln and won that ball game against Nebraska. I think South Carolina would be favored. I'd give the edge to them if that's the matchup.
Next one, I'm going down Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl. Speaking of the Huskers, Steve, Nebraska, a logical pick for that one at this point. What do you think of them in that bowl against maybe a Big 12 Texas?
I don't know what to think about Nebraska, to be honest with you, with the way things have been up and down with them. Bo Pelini's antics during and after the ball game and reprimand and fine and all that. So I don't know what to think about Nebraska. It would depend, I guess, on who they're playing.
I'm just looking forward to whoever Nebraska plays and whoever gets the halftime interview with Bo Pelini again. What the Nebraska coach is doing right now is pretty entertaining. And then we're not talking about on the field, we're talking about his demeanor off the field.
Right. Michigan, another team that qualified for a bowl game. They certainly had the guts at the end of the regular season here, but a team that probably didn't meet expectations they want. Gator Bowl is where a lot of projections have them.
And that's where, Rich Rodriguez took his last team there and he got fired. I don't think the same thing will happen to Brady Hoke, but the Wolverines have definitely been an enigma all season.
Yeah, they won a couple of games they probably should have lost against inferior competition, so I don't know what to think about them either. They'll be going bowling, but how good it'll be, we'll see.
Yeah, the Big Ten might struggle through the bowl season. The last one, the Texas Bowl, is about the last spot they can fill. Minnesota's projected to play against Texas Tech. Minnesota's had an interesting season as well. A lot of teams we don't really know much about exactly who's going to show up on any given day. Well, the Illini may be done. College football season certainly isn't over. In the state of Illinois, Eastern Illinois prepares for their first playoff game of the 2013 postseason. We'll get a preview of that next on Inside the Illini, Big Ten Football. Welcome back. Time now for our couple of minutes with FCS football. The Eastern Illinois Panthers wrapped up their OVC title a long time ago. They sat out during the first week of the playoffs, but fresh off their bye, they're ready to start a postseason run. We go inside the Panthers with Eastern Illinois University.
The second-ranked Eastern Illinois Panthers had to wait a week, but their first home playoff game since 2006 is here. The Panthers earned a first-round bye by being one of the top 8 seeds in the FCS playoff field of 24 teams. 3 OVC teams make up the remaining 16, as Jacksonville State and Tennessee State rolled over their first-round opponents. After shutting out Butler on the road last Saturday, TSU will travel north once again as they will take on EIU. It's the first postseason matchup of OVC teams head-to-head since 1991.
I think that our football team just feels like there's been unfinished business with them. This is a very good football team, and it's the second best team in our conference, regardless of what anyone else wants to say. We need to win 3 to have an opportunity to get to our goal, and we just look at this as another opportunity to try to play winning football. Our season and our record is 0-0, and we're playing a team that has the revenge factor. We're playing a team that wants to get some payback against us, and we need to just go out and play EIU football and let the chips fall where they may.
EIU won at Tennessee State on October 26th, 34-16. Since that game, both teams have endured through injuries. TSU did not have the services of quarterback Michael German in the first meeting. German had a solid effort in the Tigers' win at Butler last Saturday. EIU has kept their high-octane offense rolling, despite not having the services of Keandre Gober and Taylor Duncan for multiple games over the past month. And Walter Payton Award finalist Eric Laura sat out the Panthers' regular season finale at UT Martin.
Fresh legs and fresh minds. So we've got fresh legs. Mentally, we should be excited, happy. We do have a blessing. We became healthy, and I think that was the most important thing from the bye. I think maybe this is our most dangerous game because of the bye and the rust of not playing last week. It would just break my heart to not see this football team succeed and do the things that it's capable of doing.
This will be the second all-time meeting in the postseason between EIU and TSU. The Panthers have not won a postseason game in 24 years. That's a string of 11 games. A win by EIU would put the Panthers in the quarterfinals of the FCS playoffs for the 4th time in school history and would give EIU another home game at O'Brien Field next weekend. The Panthers are perfect at home under head coach Dino Babers, 10-0. The OVC rematch between EIU and TSU is set for a 1 p.m. game time today in Charleston. The game can be viewed on ESPN3. For the final time this season, reporting on the Eastern Illinois Panthers for Inside the Illini, I'm Brad Kubiak of WEIU.
And thanks to EIU for that. That game starts in about 25 minutes. If you're watching us live, we'll have coverage of it tonight on WAND. Next up, our Pick'em. We'll break down some of the conference championship games, Pac-12, ACC, SEC. That's next. Welcome back to Inside the Illini Big Ten Football. Handing out our awards. I guess studs and duds. There's an award for one of them. I don't know if a dud is an award. Want to talk about the guys who we were impressed by, maybe the ones we were disappointed by. Steve, give us your 2013 Illini stud.
I'm going to go with running back Josh Ferguson, a very versatile guy. Had 800 yards rushing, or close to it, and 50 pass receptions. Certainly a weapon out of the backfield. Something that gave defenses something else to think about besides Nathan Shieldhouse. And I'm going to go with Ferguson as my stud.
For much of the year, he led the team in receiving until the emergence of my stud. We'll talk about him in a sec.
I'm going to go with the obvious choice, Nathan Shieldhouse. Second team All Big Ten quarterback as chosen by the esteemed media. Threw for 3,200 yards, 21 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. Really put the offense on his shoulders and delivered, the best season of his Illinois career.
I think Nate, as he said, I don't know if you guys caught the hug between him and Bill Cubitt right before he did his post-game interview. Nate's very appreciative of what Bill brought to the offensive scheme. That benefited Nate. And of course, obviously, without Cubitt, he probably doesn't break Juice Williams' record. He definitely doesn't break Juice Williams' all-time Illinois record. My stud, Steve Hull. Second half of the year, the last 6 games, he was one of the best receivers in the country. And since I was good at math in school, so I took what Hull did over the last 6 games of the season. He played 11, took those averages. If he had had his last 6 games of production over 11 games, 95 catches, 1,500 yards, that would rank second in the nation. Keep in mind that the back end of the schedule is often tougher than the front end. If he had nice games against SIU, against Miami of Ohio, I think he could have been one of the top, at least statistical receivers in the country, and he definitely was that in the last part of the season. So I picked Steve Hull as my stud. Steve, duds. Who's your dud?
Hard to pick out one. So I picked out the defense as the dud. Record-breaking defense, not in a good way. Giving up all those points and yards. I suppose you could put it on Tim Banks. I hate to do that, but I'll just say the defense was certainly less than what we thought it would be, and a dud.
I'm going to go more specific. My dud is to Abe Kajust, highly touted junior college defensive tackle. Didn't do much of anything. Didn't play in the final 7 games this year, only had 1 tackle. Didn't see him after Wisconsin, and don't think you'll see him much on the field next year either. He just hasn't proved himself, and he'll need a whale of a job this offseason to get on the field next year.
I think there's a little, with those junior college transfers, exactly how they'd fit in. We wondered if they would impact right away. I think my honorable mention would be Martez Barr. He wasn't bad, but he certainly didn't factor in as much as I think at the beginning of the year we had hoped he would be. And part of that, was the emergence of some other guys in the receiving game. But my dud is Donovan Young. At the end of the year, certainly disappointing his production throughout the year, what we expected him last year. I know one thing he talked about at the beginning of the season was running north and south. He loved the idea of running north and south, and all of his numbers dropped. He had 40 fewer carries. He had about 200 fewer yards. His yards per carry were down. I think he played himself out of the position in the last half of the year. And in terms of beyond the numbers there, I think when you watch the tape of him, a lot of times his first step was backwards, was sideways. He was trying to find the seam. He wasn't pounding it like he said he wanted to.
He loved the idea of running north and south. He just never really did it.
Right.
And he had trouble holding onto the football, which caused a diminished lack of playing time throughout the Big Ten season.
Maybe he lost his sense of direction. He didn't know which way was north and south.
He needs a stadium that's rotated 90 degrees. But no, Donovan Young, guy who'll be back next year. So certainly things can change. Young and Ferguson could be a great 1-2 in that backfield. They need to play their way into the position, into some playing time, though. Those are our studs and duds of 2013. Next, we look ahead to 2014. What do we think about some of the rumored changes or lack thereof for the off-season here? That's next on Inside the Illini Big Ten Football. Welcome back to Inside the Illini Big Ten Football. Time now in the show. We make our final picks of the college football season. And as we throw up the standings here, I'd like to point out that one person at this table picked Auburn to beat Alabama and predicted a Florida State-Ohio State national championship game a week ago.
I think it's the only Washington State fan at this table, too.
It might be. It probably is. Who, by the way, should be in a bowl game. We'll figure that out tomorrow. Looking at the standings, 21-15, I pulled into a tab of the News Gazette. Steve hung tight all season, 19-17. Tell you, we had some tough games to pick this year, so as we will have today. We'll start with some of the championship games. ACC championship, number 20 Duke against number 1 Florida State. This is a football championship game, to clarify.
I'm going with Florida State. They've never lost to the Blue Devils, and Mike Krzyzewski's not coaching against Leonard Hamilton. So going to go with the Seminoles in this one and clinching a spot in the BCS title.
They're only about a 30-point favorite. Yeah, I have to go with Florida State as well.
Yeah, ACC Coach of the Year, David Cutcliffe. Nice story for Duke, and really great season for them. Not beating Jameis, it will be a blowout. I think Florida State wins easily, firmly in the national championship game. Now the SEC championship. Many will say the winner of this game deserves to be in the national championship game. What do we think, Auburn, Missouri?
I'm going to go with Auburn. I don't think they're going to have to win on a 109-yard field goal return this time. I think Gus Malzahn's team will dominate from the start. And going with you can't go wrong. One of the Tigers is going to win, but I'm going to go with the one down in Alabama.
I'm going to go with Auburn as well, although they could have a little hangover going into the start of that ball game and the way that thing went last week, or could work the reverse, I guess, and really have them pumped up. But I like the Auburn Tigers as well.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Auburn as well. They're just a team that's got the magic. It wasn't just last week's game; it was the Georgia game. Remember how that one ended? Yeah. Sometimes the team just has it going for them. I think Auburn does right now. And the question going forward, which we may address here in a sec, at 12-1, should they be in the national championship game? Hold off on that. Pac-12 championship, Stanford against Arizona State. I'll tell you what, those Sun Devils just kind of kept creeping up. They're ranked number 11th in the BCS right now.
Well, to break the gridlock that you and I are bound to have, I'm going to go with Arizona State because I think you're going to go with Stanford. So that's my logic right now. Sun Devils.
Is there any?
No,
that's it.
That's it. I just don't want to end up tied with you.
Logic sometimes is overrated, right?
Especially when picking games.
I'm going to go with Arizona State as well.
Well, you know what? I'd like to thank you for giving me the favorite in this one. No, yeah, I like Stanford in this one. I like what they've been able to do. Arizona State hasn't been as convincing to me. I think Stanford's win over Oregon and how they did it. They can channel that for one ball game. They go to the Rose Bowl. So I do pick Stanford that one. Arizona State, Michigan State Rose Bowl. Is that what you're thinking then?
Sure.
That's a confident man right there. Here's a bonus pick for us. Let's just talk about the Big Ten championship game. What do we think about this?
Ohio State wins by a touchdown or two, and they'll meet Florida State, two undefeated teams in the BCS title game, the way it should be.
Ohio State?
Ohio State. That does it for our picks there. Well, obviously, we'll be watching the Pac-12 championship. The winner wins this illustrious Pick'em championship here on Inside the Illini. Well, 13 weeks finished in the NFL season. The playoff picture isn't any clearer for a lot of teams, but where do some of the Illini factor in? We turn to our Elise Menaker in the WA&D studios for Illini on the Pros, brought to you by O'Brien Auto Park of Urbana.
Thanks, Matt. You're going to have to wait to hear about your Seahawks because today I'm starting with the Chiefs and Broncos, who meet again in Week 13, this time in Kansas City.
Jeff Allen, John Asamoah, and the Chiefs' offensive line help gain 159 rushing yards. They allow no sacks, but it's the Broncos that come out on top 35-28. Also in this game, wide receiver A.J. Jenkins, who's had just 2 catches all season. He had 3 in this game for 35 yards. He's seen more snaps the past 2 weeks than he has the past 4 games combined. The Kansas City Star reporting this opportunity means a lot to him. Running back Rashard Mendenhall had 18 carries for 76 yards for the Cardinals, but it wasn't enough against the Eagles, who take this game 24-21. At MetLife Stadium, Jets tight end Jeff Cumberland had 1 catch for 6 yards, but they would fall to the Dolphins. 3 tackles and this split sack for Texans Whitney Merciless against Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. And if you can follow this, New England cornerback Justin Green made his NFL debut in Week 12 against the Broncos. He was then waived by the Patriots, and one day after being released, he was re-signed to the practice squad.
And Matt, of course, the Seahawks taking on the Saints. Seattle playing some defense, as fans say. Pierre Thomas held to just 4 rushing attempts, picked up no yards. He did have 4 catches for 21 yards. That'll do it for Illini in the Pros. I'm Elise Menaker for Inside the Illini.
And thanks all season, Elise, for your reports on the NFL. We'll spend the next couple of segments wrapping up the 2013 season in terms of the Fighting Illini. Our 2013 Studs and Duds coming up next. Welcome back to Inside the Illini Big Ten Football, the final segment of the 2013 season here on the show, which fittingly is about the 2014 season. Earlier this week, Mike Thomas giving Tim Beckman his vote of confidence. I don't think we were very surprised by that going to next year.
That was a foregone conclusion. Tim Beckman will be back, especially after they won at Purdue. Now the real question comes if there's going to be any staff changes on Beckman's staff.
Steve, thoughts on that?
Yeah, it should be interesting. I think there will be. Now, whether or not people leave on their own or otherwise, we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But you talk about next year, you look at the schedule looks a lot better.
It softens up.
You can see them being 3-1 out of the gate, and then the home Big Ten games are at least a little more winnable, on paper at least.
Well, and we'll show you the schedule here. The Big Ten home games you talk about are Purdue, Minnesota, Iowa, Penn State. Depending on what we see in the preseason next year, those might be games where we think they could be winnable games. I mean, all 7 of the home games we see could be winnable games for Illinois.
They could be. I'm not a big believer in that, though. I think they're going to stumble at some point. Penn State will have Christian Hackenberg back for his sophomore year. Minnesota seems to have gotten it rolling with Jerry Kill. Iowa, like I said earlier, I'm a big Hawkeye fan right now. Even the non-conference game. I mean, Western Kentucky finished 8-4 this year. Texas State started out 6-3 under Dennis Francione. Youngstown State went 8-4, and we all saw the problems that SIU Carbondale posed to Illinois next year. So, not to be a Debbie Downer or anything, but the home schedule is still kind of tricky for Illinois.
Matt says they won't win any.
You heard it here first.
And I think in terms of staff changes, you alluded to it, Steve. I mean, defensively, I looked up some of the numbers. 110th in total defense, 116th in rush defense. The numbers they gave up on rushing is like facing Braxton Miller and Carlos Hyde every day. The pass efficiency defense was 112th in the country. The rating they gave up is like facing Georgia QB Aaron Murray every day. Something's got to be done. I don't know if it's staff. Maybe they just need to grow up a little bit. A lot of pieces coming back for the defense.
Well, yeah, they need to get better players. That's one thing, and that who gets the players, the staff. So it's all tied together, obviously. But it will be interesting. There were reports this week that they want to keep continuity. Well, what is continuity, and is this continuity? I don't know, but it should be fun to see what happens.
Yeah, they got nine starters coming back on defense. You could look at that as a good thing or a bad thing. I kind of tend to say someone in the middle. Some key pieces are coming back. I'd expect a big year out of Angelo Bentley next year. Tico Powell as well on the defensive line kind of showed some signs the last half of the year, but other than that, there's not too many bright spots coming back for Illinois' defense.
Number one storyline in March when we get there, spring ball. Number one storyline in August is going to be Wes Lunt or Aaron Bailey. I think we've discussed who's going to come out of that one, but I think that's going to be the most interesting thing that we focus on.
Well, we don't know if Aaron Bailey could pass. We just really haven't seen him do it. It's not his fault. He just hasn't had a chance to do it. He'll get that chance in spring ball and fall ball.
And Wes Lunt is, got the prettiest throwing motion on the team, prettiest ball placement, things like that. I'd have to think he's kind of the clear-cut number one guy going into spring ball, but we'll see what transpires here in the next couple months.
Hopefully he's made use of this sit-out year. We've enjoyed talking about the Illini all season. A tough season, but we'll hope for a better one next year. That does it for us here on Inside the Illini Big Ten Football. I want to thank Steve. I want to thank Matt. I want to thank Lauren Tate, who's joined us throughout the year on the show. Thank the crew, who's worked very hard on the show all season. And before we go, we did get a number of highlights, in fact, quite a bit more than we did in 2012. We'll leave you with some of the top moments from the 2013 season. Thanks for joining us.
For the all-time total offense record.
And that is the second touchdown of the afternoon for Steve Hall.
Drops it off to Ferguson with blockers. Ferguson lunging for the end zone.
They're not going to catch him. He's gone. Touchdown, Illinois.
Thrown right to Jonathan Brown.
Receiver Langford coming right to left with a carry, 25-20. Touchback across the field. They're not going to get him. Touchdown, Illinois. Nathan hit as he throws. Going deep, looking for Langford. He's got it. 20, 10, 5. Touchdown. And to the 15 to the 20. Got a block. Here he goes. 30. Right sideline, 40. Cuts back. Back to the left of the 40, he might go away. 30 to the 25, 20 to the 10, 5, touchdown! Gonna option, keeping himself, rambles to the goal line, fumble the ball. As he crossed the goal line, the Illini have it, and it'll be a touchback, and the Illini have stopped him.
That one is picked off. Illinois has 20 points and a victory.
Thank you for watching Inside the Illini Big Ten College Football, brought to you by your local Anheuser-Busch distributors, O'Brien Auto Park of Urbana, Hickory River Smokehouse in Urbana, and WAND.